I never thought I'd be the kind of woman who poured her life savings into a man's dream. But there I was, signing away my grandmother's inheritance, all $500,000 of it, while Austin squeezed my hand under the conference room table. My name is Viviana, and 5 years ago, I met the man who would both make and break me at a startup incubator in Boston. I was managing the space. He was the charming entrepreneur with big ideas about cloud security that nobody else believed in. Yet, this is insane, Austin whispered that first night as we shared cheap takeout over his business plans. Everyone says the market's too crowded. They're wrong, I said, pointing to his prototype with my chopsticks. You're thinking 3 steps ahead of them. That's how it started. Late nights turned into early mornings. Coffee runs became dinner dates. Within 6 months, we were married in a small ceremony that his mother, Rachel, called quaint. Her way of saying cheap. Darling. She pulled me aside at the reception, champagne glass dangling from her manicured fingers. Couldn't we have done this at the country club? The Blakes have standards to maintain. I smiled politely, but Austin's father, Winston, was less subtle. At least she's bringing something to the table, he muttered to his wife. Even if it's just startup capital. They thought I couldn't hear them. I always could. The day I brought the inheritance check to our lawyer, my hands were shaking. Not because I doubted Austin's vision, but because my grandmother's voice kept echoing in my head. Money changes people, Piccola. Remember that. Are you absolutely certain about this? Kian, my family's lawyer, asked for the third time. He'd known my grandmother for decades. I am, I said, pushing the papers forward. But I want that special clause we discussed. Austin was too excited about the funding to read the fine print. He just signed where Kian pointed, then pulled me into a kiss. You're amazing, he whispered. We're going to build an empire. For 3 years, we did exactly that. I handled operations while Austin coded and pitched. We worked 18-hour days, ate dinner at our desks, and slowly watched his security app gain traction. Every small win felt like ours. Until last month. The Series A funding came through, Austin announced, bursting into our home office. $7 million. I jumped up to hug him, but he was already on his phone. Send in the new executive assistant tomorrow, he was saying. Yes, perfect. Thanks, Mom. The next morning she walked in. Cassandra. Tall, elegant, fresh out of business school. Everything I apparently wasn't. Isn't she perfect? Rachel gushed during the investor meeting, watching Cassandra hover around Austin. Now that's more like it. I pretended to be absorbed in my laptop, but I saw the way Austin's eyes followed Cassandra around the room. I saw Rachel's approving nods. I saw Winston's satisfied smirk. Later that night, I stood in our kitchen, stirring pasta that had gone cold an hour ago. Austin was still at the office, with Cassandra, planning the company's future. My phone buzzed. A text from Isabella, my best friend. You okay? You've been quiet lately. I started typing, I think something's wrong, then deleted it. Instead, I wrote, remember that clause Kian helped me add to the investment contract? Her response was instant. The nuclear option? Yeah, I typed back. I think it's time to dust it off. I put down my phone and walked to the window, looking out at the city lights. The same view Austin and I used to share dreams over. Now it just felt cold. My grandmother used to say another thing. La vendetta è un piatto che va servito freddo. Revenge is a dish best served cold. I heard Austin's key in the door, smelled Cassandra's perfume before I saw her step in behind him. They froze when they saw me standing there. V, he started. We were just going over the pitch deck. I smiled. Not the warm smile of a loving wife, but the kind of smile that makes people nervous. Of course you were, I said, walking past them to our bedroom. By the way, the board meeting tomorrow? I'll be there. You don't need to, Austin called after me. It's just technical stuff. I closed the door without responding. They had no idea what was coming, No idea that while they were planning their future, I was planning something else entirely. After all, I didn't spend 500 grand to walk away with breadcrumbs. The signs were everywhere, but I forced myself to ignore them. The late nights at the office, the whispered phone calls, the way Austin's wedding ring started living in his desk drawer instead of on his finger. Business casual, he'd say with a shrug. The ring scratches my laptop. I was reorganizing his closet when I found the receipt. A 5-star hotel downtown, dated 3 weeks ago. We hadn't stayed there. I didn't confront him. Not yet. Instead, I started taking photos, documenting everything. You're being paranoid, Isabella said over coffee. Maybe it's innocent. I slid my phone across the table, showing her the credit card statements. 3 dinners at Maestro's last week, all after 10 p.m. Shit, she whispered. What are you going to do? Wait, I said, stirring my untouched latte. Just wait. I didn't have to wait long. That evening, Austin came home early, a red flag itself. He was wearing his important meeting suit and had that practiced, sympathetic expression I'd seen him use on employees he was about to fire. We need to talk, he said, setting his briefcase down carefully. I looked up from my laptop. About? This isn't working anymore, Vi. He loosened his tie. We've grown in different directions. You're still the same small-town girl I met, and you're what? My voice was steadier than I felt. I'm building something bigger than us. The company needs a certain image now. The investors, my parents, they all agree. I closed my laptop slowly. They all agree about what? That it's time for a change. He pulled out a manila envelope. I'm filing for divorce. Don't worry, you'll be taken care of. $50,000 plus 3 months to find a new place. The laugh escaped before I could stop it. 50,000? For my 500,000 investment? He had the decency to look uncomfortable. That was years ago, Vi. The company's worth millions now. You can't expect. Is it Cassandra? His silence was answer enough. How long? It doesn't matter, he said, standing up. My parents are throwing an engagement party next weekend. I'd appreciate if you'd be moved out by then. I stood too, walking to the window where I'd first dreamed with him. Your parents must be thrilled. They are, actually. Rachel's already planning the wedding. Country club, of course. He attempted a kind smile. This is better for everyone, Vi. You never really fit in with the Blakes? I turned to face him. No, I suppose I didn't. The papers are all drawn up, he continued, tapping the envelope. Larry handled everything. Just sign them and we can both move on. I picked up the envelope, feeling its weight. All those years, all that love, reduced to a few sheets of paper. I'll have Kian look these over. Austin frowned. We don't need to involve other lawyers. Larry's very thorough. I'm sure he is. I walked to the door, envelope in hand. But my grandmother always said, never sign anything without reading the fine print. His face darkened. Don't drag this out, Vi. It won't change anything. No, I agreed, opening the door. It won't change what you did, but it might change what happens next. As I closed the door behind me, my phone buzzed. A text from Rachel. I hope you understand this is for the best, dear. Austin needs someone who can stand beside him in our world. I didn't reply. Instead, I called Kian. They finally did it, he answered, knowing why I was calling. Yes. They want me gone by next weekend, offering 50,000. He made a sound between a laugh and a growl. Did they forget about Section 7.3? Apparently, I said, walking toward my car. How quickly can you move? I'll file first thing tomorrow. Where are you heading? I started the engine, watching Austin's silhouette in his apartment window. To get a drink with Isabella. Then to plan how I'm going to take everything they have. Be careful, Kian warned. Revenge is a dish best served cold, I finished. I know. But they forgot something important. What's that? I pulled away from the curb, leaving behind the life I thought I'd have. I'm not just some small-town girl they can dismiss. I'm the woman who owns 51% of their precious company. Later that night, I sat at my kitchen table, shredding their insulting buyout offer into tiny pieces. Each rip felt like therapy. Each scrap represented a piece of my naivete falling away. They thought I would crumble. They thought I would take their scraps and disappear. They were wrong. The boardroom felt colder than usual that morning. Austin sat at one end, flanked by his parents and Larry, their lawyer. I sat at the other, with only Kian beside me. The contrast wasn't lost on anyone. "Let's make this quick," Winston said, checking his Rolex. "The papers are signed. Viviana just needs to accept the settlement and clear out her desk." Kian cleared his throat. "Actually, we should review the original investment agreement first. That's ancient history." Rachel waved her hand dismissively. "The company's grown beyond that." "Has it?" I pulled out a thick folder. "Because Section 7.3 of that agreement is very much current." Larry's face twitched. "Section 7.3? You mean you didn't read it?" Kian slid copies across the table. The clause protecting my client's controlling interest in case of involuntary removal. The color drained from Larry's face as he scanned the document. Austin grabbed it from him, his eyes darting across the page. "This is impossible," Austin sputtered. "You can't." "But I can," I interrupted. "In fact, I already do. 51% controlling interest, triggered by any attempt to force me out without cause." Rachel's perfectly lined lips trembled. "You planned this from the start?" "No," I said softly. "I planned for it. My grandmother taught me well." The memory flooded back. Sitting in Kian's office 5 years ago, my grandmother's words still fresh in my mind. "Never give away power without a safety net," she'd said on her deathbed. "Men like the Blakes, they take and take until nothing's left." Larry was still reading, his forehead beaded with sweat. "This clause, it overrides everything. She's the majority owner now." "You're lying." Winston stood up, his chair scraping against the floor. "This is a trick." "Sit down, Winston," Kian said calmly, "before you embarrass yourself further." Austin leaned forward, his charm switching on like a light. "Vi, baby, let's talk about this. We can work something out." "Like you worked things out with Cassandra?" I met his gaze. "Behind my back?" "That's different," he stammered. "I was going to tell you." "When? At your engagement party?" Rachel tried next. "Darling, be reasonable. This company needs strong leadership." "I agree." I stood up, smoothing my skirt. "That's why I'm taking over as CEO, effective immediately." The room exploded. Winston shouted about betrayal. Rachel burst into tears. Austin knocked over his water glass, sputtering threats about lawsuits. "Sue all you want," Kian said, raising his voice above the chaos. "The paperwork is ironclad. I drew it up myself." Larry nodded miserably. "He's right. We don't have grounds to challenge this. I built this company." Austin slammed his fist on the table. "It's my vision." "Built it?" I laughed. "With whose money? Who handled operations while you played visionary? Who worked 18-hour days without a salary?" The room fell silent. "Starting tomorrow," I continued, "there will be changes. New board members, new direction, new everything." "You can't do this to us," Rachel whispered. "We're family." "We're family," I corrected, "and you made it very clear I wasn't good enough for that title." I gathered my things, watching their shocked faces. 5 years of condescension, of subtle jabs and not-so-subtle dismissals, all crumbling in front of me. "One more thing," I added, reaching the door. "Cassandra's employment is terminated, effective immediately. I'm sure you understand. It's about maintaining the right company image." Austin jumped up. "You vindictive bit. Careful." Kian cut him off. That's your CEO you're talking to. I walked out, my heels clicking against the marble floor. Behind me, I could hear Winston demanding Larry find a loophole, Rachel sobbing about social embarrassment, and Austin. Austin was silent. In the elevator, my hands finally started shaking. I pulled out my phone and texted Isabella. It's done. Her reply came instantly. Did they cry? Rachel did. Winston raged. Austin threatened. And how do you feel? I stared at my reflection in the elevator's mirrored walls. I looked different somehow. Stronger. I typed, then paused. How did I feel? Victorious? Sad? Empty? The elevator doors opened to the lobby, where Cassandra was waiting with a box of her belongings. Our eyes met briefly before she looked away. I finished my text to Isabella. I feel like I'm just getting started. Upstairs, the Blakes were probably still reeling, trying to understand how their perfect plan had backfired. They never saw it coming. But then again, they never really saw me at all. That was their first mistake, and their last. My first week as CEO felt like performing surgery. Precise, methodical, and completely ruthless. Every cut had a purpose. The board meeting is starting, my new assistant announced. They're all here. I walked into the conference room where the old guard sat. Executives handpicked by Winston, all country club members, all men over 50. Austin slouched in his usual seat, looking like he hadn't slept in days. Gentlemen, I began, setting down my laptop. Thank you for coming. This won't take long. Where's Winston? Someone asked. No longer on the board, I replied, opening my presentation. Neither is Rachel, or anyone else who got their position through family connections rather than merit. The room erupted in protests. Austin shot up from his chair. You can't just. I can, and I am. I clicked to the first slide. Meet your new board members. Photos appeared on the screen. Diverse faces, all under 40, all with impressive tech credentials. Sarah from engineering, who developed our core security protocol. Marcus from sales, who landed our biggest accounts. Delia from R&D, whose patents you've been sitting on. This is ridiculous, huffed Richard, Winston's golf buddy. These people they're qualified, I finished. Unlike certain others who spent more time at the country club than in the office. One by one, I announced the terminations. With each name, another red face stormed out. Finally, only Austin remained. What about me? He asked, his voice hollow. You stay, for now, but you're no longer COO. I closed my laptop. You'll report to Sarah. He laughed bitterly. Sarah? My former junior developer? The same Sarah whose ideas you took credit for last quarter? Yes. The door burst open. Winston barged in, face purple with rage, Rachel trailing behind him. You ungrateful little witch, he roared. We made you. No, I stood my ground. You tolerated me. There's a difference. Rachel grabbed my arm. Think about what you're doing to this family. I gently removed her hand. Like you thought about what you were doing to me? All those years of snide comments, of helpful suggestions about my clothes, my accent, my background? We were trying to help you fit in, she cried. No, you were trying to remake me into someone you deemed worthy. How did that work out? Winston slammed his fist on the table. This company bears our name. Not anymore. I projected the new branding onto the screen. As of tomorrow, we're rebranding. New name, new logo, new everything. Austin finally found his voice. You're erasing us completely? Like you tried to erase me? I turned to face him. $50,000? Really? He at least had the decency to look ashamed. Security will escort you out, I said to Winston and Rachel. Don't worry about your personal items. They'll be shipped to your downsized apartment. Downsized? Rachel's voice rose an octave. Oh, didn't you hear? Your country club membership has been revoked. Something about unpaid dues? Amazing how quickly social standing crumbles when the money does. Winston moved toward me, but security was already there. As they were led out, Rachel's sobs echoed down the hallway. "You can keep the name Blake," I told Austin as he stood to leave. "I'm keeping everything else." That evening, I sat in my new office, Austin's old one, looking at the city lights. My phone buzzed with a text from Isabella. "Saw the press release about the restructuring. You okay?" Before I could respond, another message came through. From Cassandra. "Can we talk? There's something you should know." I stared at the message for a long moment. What could she possibly have to say? "Meet me at the coffee shop across the street." 15 minutes, I replied. When I got there, Cassandra was already waiting, looking nothing like the polished assistant who'd caught Austin's eye. Her hands shook as she clutched her coffee cup. "I didn't know," she blurted out before I could sit down. "About the money, about what you built. They told me you were just—" "The small-town wife who got lucky," I finished. Sitting across from her, she nodded miserably. "There's more. Things I saw, documents I handled. Things that could—" "Could what?" She leaned forward, lowering her voice. "Could prove Austin and Winston were cooking the books before the Series A funding. Inflating numbers, hiding expenses." I felt a cold smile spread across my face. "Tell me everything." As Cassandra talked, I realized my grandmother had been right about one more thing. The truth always rises to the surface, Piccola, like cream. Or bodies. The Blakes were about to learn just how right she was. Cassandra's hands trembled as she spread the documents across my kitchen table. It was 2 a.m., and we were on our third pot of coffee. "Here," she pointed to a spreadsheet. "See these contractor payments? They're all ghost companies. Shell corporations Winston set up to siphon money before the Series A funding." I leaned closer. "How much?" "Nearly $2 million. She pulled up another file on her laptop. "But that's not the worst part. Look at these revenue projections they showed investors." The numbers were staggering and completely fabricated. "Austin had me create 2 sets of books," she continued. "One for investors, one for reality. He said it was standard startup practice, but it's fraud," I finished. She nodded, running her hands through her disheveled hair. "I should have said something sooner. But Austin, he made promises." "Let me guess. Marriage, status, the whole Blake package?" God, I was stupid. She laughed bitterly. "You know what he told me about you? That you were just a placeholder. Someone to help fund his dream until he could trade up." The words stung, but I kept my face neutral. "And now? Now I'm just another placeholder he's discarding." She pulled out her phone, showing me texts from Austin. "He's already dating some venture capitalist's daughter." I poured more coffee. "Why are you showing me all this?" "Because I'm angry. Because it's right." She met my eyes. "Because I want to help you burn it all down." My phone buzzed. A text from Isabella. "You sure you can trust her?" I looked at Cassandra, really looked at her. The designer clothes were wrinkled, the perfect makeup gone. She looked like I felt not too long ago. "There's something else," Cassandra said quietly. "Offshore accounts. Winston and Austin have been moving company funds through the Caymans." "Can you prove it?" She pulled out a USB drive. "Everything's here. Account numbers, transfer records, emails. I was Austin's executive assistant. I handled all the paperwork." "Why didn't they destroy these records?" "Arrogance," she shrugged. "They never thought anyone would dare challenge them." I took the drive, turning it over in my hands. "You realize this could ruin them completely? Not just professionally, but legally?" "Good." Her voice hardened. "They deserve it." Just then, my phone lit up with a call from Kian. "Turn on the business news," he said without greeting. I grabbed the remote, flipping to the financial channel. The headline made my heart stop. Tech startup under investigation for financial irregularities. Winston's trying to get ahead of this, Kian explained. He's claiming you're making unauthorized changes, destabilizing the company. I looked at Cassandra, who was already pulling up more documents. Let him try. Be careful, Kian warned. They're desperate. I'm counting on it. I hung up and turned to Cassandra. How fast can you organize all this evidence? Give me 2 hours. We worked through the night, organizing, documenting, building our case. Around dawn, Cassandra's phone buzzed. It's Austin, she said, showing me the message. We need to talk. I can make this right. I smiled. Answer him. Set up a meeting. You want me to? Play along. Let him think he can fix this. She typed out a response, then looked up at me. What's the plan? You'll meet him. Record everything. Let him dig his own grave. He'll be suspicious if I suddenly want to talk. No, I said, remembering how Austin's ego worked. He'll think he can charm his way out of this. Men like him always do. Later that morning, I sat in my office, watching the sun rise over the city. The evidence Cassandra provided was devastating, enough to trigger federal investigations, shareholder lawsuits, possible criminal charges. My phone buzzed with a text from Cassandra. Meeting set for tonight. Maestro's at 8. I forwarded the message to Kian, adding, Have your contact at the SEC ready. His reply was immediate. They're standing by. Sure about this? Before I could respond, an email arrived from Rachel. Whatever you think you're doing, remember, you're nothing without the Blake name. I thought about my grandmother, about all the times she warned me about people who mistake kindness for weakness, about how the quietest revenge is often the most complete. I'm sure, I texted Kian back. Time to show them exactly who I am without their precious name. The pieces were all in place. Tonight, Austin would try to charm his way out of trouble, not knowing every word would be recorded. Tomorrow, the SEC would receive a very interesting package of documents. And the day after that? Well, as my grandmother used to say, the mighty fall twice as hard when they don't see the ground coming. The emergency board meeting felt like a funeral. Austin sat pale and rigid. Winston's hands shook as he shuffled papers, and Rachel's mascara was already running. The SEC investigators flanked the door like sentries. Play it, I instructed my assistant. Cassandra's recorded conversation with Austin filled the room. Of course, the numbers were fake. Austin's voice rang clear. That's how the game is played. Dad's been doing it for years. Those offshore accounts? They're just insurance. Winston's coffee cup clattered against the table. And Viviana? Cassandra had asked. She was useful at first. Her grandmother's money got us started. But people like her, they don't belong in our world. You understand that, right? I paused the recording. There's another hour of this. Should I continue? You set me up, Austin whispered. No, I corrected. You set yourself up. I just provided the stage. The lead SEC investigator stepped forward. We've reviewed the evidence. The fraudulent projections, ghost contractors, offshore accounts, it's all there. This is a misunderstanding, Winston stammered. We can explain. Save it for your lawyers. The investigator cut him off. We have enough to pursue criminal charges. Rachel started sobbing. This will ruin us. The company can survive, I said, standing, but only with complete transparency and new leadership. You planned this from the start, Austin accused, finally finding his voice. You and Cassandra? Actually, she came to me. Turns out I'm not the only woman you underestimated. The boardroom doors opened again. A team of lawyers entered, led by Kian. The shareholders have called for an immediate vote, Kian announced, to remove Austin from all positions within the company. You can't do this, Austin shot up. I built this company. You deserve prison, I interrupted, but I'm willing to be merciful. Resign now, surrender your shares, and we won't press additional charges. Winston tried to intervene. Now wait just a minute. Your choice ends in 30 seconds, I continued, ignoring him. Resign or face prosecution. Tick-tock. The room fell silent except for Rachel's quiet sobs. Austin looked around desperately, but found no allies. Even his father avoided his gaze. Fine, he spat, grabbing the resignation papers. You win. No, I corrected as he signed. The company wins. The employees win. The investors win. You just lose. The SEC team moved forward to escort Austin out. As they reached the door, he turned back. You don't deserve this, he snarled. You're nothing but a small-town... Careful, I cut him off. Your words are still being recorded. After they left, I addressed the remaining board members. The press release goes out in an hour. The company will cooperate fully with investigators. We'll take a short-term stock hit, but our fundamentals are strong. And us? Winston asked quietly. You can retire quietly, or we can dig deeper into your other business dealings. Your choice. Rachel grabbed her husband's arm. Winston, please, let's just go. As they shuffled out, I caught a glimpse of their faces. Defeated, aged, broken. Part of me felt hollow seeing it. Another part felt nothing at all. Isabella was waiting in my office. You okay? I sank into my chair. They're finished. The Blake dynasty, their reputation, their social standing, all gone. Good, she said firmly. After what they did to you, I know. I stared out at the city. So why don't I feel better? Because you're not like them, she said simply. You didn't do this for pleasure. You did it for justice. My phone buzzed. A message from Cassandra. It's done. I'm leaving town for a while. Thank you for everything. What about her? Isabella asked, reading over my shoulder. She'll be fine. The SEC granted her immunity for cooperating. And the company? I pulled up our latest projections. The real ones. We'll recover. Maybe even stronger than before. You won? Isabella smiled. Now what? I didn't answer. Instead, I walked to the window, watching the sun set over the city. The same view Austin and I once shared, dreaming different dreams. My grandmother used to say that revenge doesn't heal wounds. It just creates new ones. Maybe she was right. But sometimes, those new wounds are worth it. Sometimes, they're the price of justice. My phone buzzed again. A text from Rachel. You destroyed everything we built. I typed back a simple response. No, you did that yourselves. I just showed everyone the truth. Then I turned off my phone, poured 2 glasses of wine, and sat with my best friend in the quiet of my victory, wondering why success tasted so bittersweet. The headlines kept coming, each one another nail in the Blake family coffin. Tech air faces, federal charges in fraud scheme. Society couple forced to sell mansion amid investigation. Country club revokes memberships of disgraced family. I was reviewing the latest press coverage when my assistant buzzed. Rachel's here. She doesn't have an appointment. Send her in. She looked different. Older, wearing last season's clothes, her designer bag replaced by something simple leather. Her hands clutched a manila envelope. You've won, she said without preamble. Are you happy now? I gestured to a chair. What do you want, Rachel? Winston's had a heart attack. She sank into the seat. The stress, the shame. It was too much. I'm sorry to hear that. Are you? Her voice cracked. We've lost everything. Our friends won't return calls. The charity boards have removed us. Even our country club, 30 years of membership, gone. Karma's interesting that way. She opened the envelope, pulling out photos. This was Austin's 5th birthday. Look how happy he was. Such a bright little boy. Rachel, I cut her off. Why are you here? Because you're all he has left. She threw the photos on my desk. His father's in the hospital. Our accounts are frozen. his fiancée left him. He needs help. I picked up one photo. Austin as a child, grinning with missing teeth. Where is he now? Staying in our pool house. They seized his condo. She leaned forward. He made mistakes, terrible mistakes. But he's still what? The boy in these photos? That boy grew up to be a man who committed fraud, who cheated and lied, who treated people like stepping stones. Because we taught him to, she burst out. We raised him to believe he deserved everything, that rules were for other people. This is our fault. I sat back, surprised by her honesty. Please, she whispered, help him. If not for him, then for the boy he used to be. My phone buzzed. A news alert. Austin faces additional charges in expanding investigation. I can't stop the investigation, I said quietly, even if I wanted to. But you could speak for him. Tell them he cooperated. Something. I thought about Austin in the boardroom, his final snarling words. About all the small cruelties, the lies, the betrayals. No. Rachel's face hardened. Then you're no better than us. Maybe not. But at least I'm honest about who I am. She stood, gathering her photos. You broke our family. Your family broke itself. I just refused to be collateral damage. After she left, I called Kian. How's the plea deal looking? Not good for Austin. They found more evidence. 5 to 10 years, minimum. I walked to the window, watching Rachel's figure disappear into a waiting Uber. No more private driver. And Winston? The heart attack bought him sympathy. House arrest, probably. The company assets? Being untangled. The legitimate ones will stay with the corporation. The rest? He paused. Let's just say their grandchildren won't be trust fund kids. That evening, I drove past their mansion. A for sale sign stood in the manicured lawn. Through the pool house window, I caught a glimpse of Austin, unshaven, drinking alone. My phone rang. It was Isabella. You're trending again, she said. Female CEO exposes family fraud empire is getting lots of shares. Great, I muttered. Hey, what's wrong? This is what you wanted. I pulled over, killing the engine. Is it? I wanted justice, not what? Not to become them. Cold. Calculating. Destroying lives over pride. Stop it, she said firmly. You exposed criminals. They destroyed their own lives. As if on cue, another text from Rachel arrived. Austin's drinking heavily. If anything happens to him, it's on your conscience. I deleted it without responding. Back at my apartment, I poured a glass of wine and opened my grandmother's old recipe book. Between pages of handwritten instructions were her notes about life, love, and justice. Remember, Piccola, one read, revenge may satisfy the mind, but it never heals the heart. I traced her handwriting with my finger, thinking about the boy in those photos, about the man he became, about the wreckage of a family's legacy. My phone buzzed one last time. A message from Cassandra. Saw the news. You did the right thing. Some people need to lose everything to learn anything. I closed my grandmother's book and walked to my balcony. The city sparkled below, indifferent to the rise and fall of the mighty. Tomorrow, I would focus on rebuilding the company, on creating something positive from all this destruction. But tonight, I let myself feel the full weight of what I'd done, the justice and the pain, the victory and the cost. Sometimes winning feels a lot like losing. Maybe that's how you know you're still human. The cemetery was quiet except for the rustle of fall leaves. I placed fresh flowers on my grandmother's grave, brushing dust from her headstone. You were right about everything, I whispered. About money changing people, about keeping power, about revenge. My phone buzzed. A news alert about Austin's sentencing. 7 years. Winston under house arrest. Their assets seized. Rachel living with her sister in Ohio. Ms. Viviana? A gentle voice interrupted my thoughts. I turned to find an elderly groundskeeper. Someone left this for you at the office. He handed me a worn envelope. Inside was a photo. Me and Austin at the startup incubator, both young and smiling, full of dreams. On the back, in Rachel's handwriting, "When love was enough." My phone buzzed again. Isabella. "Board meeting in 30. Big announcement today?" "On my way," I texted back. The company headquarters looked different now. Gone were the pretentious artwork and cold minimalism the Blakes preferred. Instead, walls showcased employee achievements, patent certificates, team photos. In the boardroom, faces bright with anticipation greeted me. Sarah, our brilliant CTO. Marcus from sales. Delia from R&D. People who'd earned their seats through talent, not bloodlines. "Before we start," I said, taking my place, "I have an announcement." I pulled up the presentation. As of today, 20% of company shares will be distributed among employees. Another 10% will fund scholarships for underprivileged tech students. The room erupted in applause and surprised chatter. "There's more," I continued. "We're establishing an innovation lab, named after my grandmother. Any employee can pitch ideas, receive funding, own their patents. The kind of opportunity Austin never gave us," Sarah said softly. "Exactly," I smiled. "Success shouldn't depend on who you know or where you came from." After the meeting, Isabella cornered me. "Giving away 30% of your shares? That's millions. Money changes people, remember?" I gathered my things. "I'm keeping enough to ensure control, but this company's future shouldn't rest on one person's shoulders." Speaking of futures, she handed me a letter. Cassandra sent this. Inside was a business plan for her own startup, along with a note. "Thank you for showing me a better way to succeed. Would you consider being an advisor?" I tucked the letter away, making a mental note to call her. My assistant appeared at the door. "There's someone here to see you. Says it's important." In my office waited a familiar face, Larry, the Blakes' former lawyer. "Make it quick," I said, not sitting. "I came to apologize." He looked older, tired. I should have caught that clause years ago. Should have questioned the financial reports. "Why didn't you?" "Because it was easier not to. Because they paid well." He sighed. "I'm retiring. But first, I wanted you to know what you've done here, rebuilding the company this way. It's remarkable." After he left, I walked to my grandmother's old photo on my desk. "Is this what you meant about revenge not healing hearts? That healing comes from creating something better instead?" My phone lit up with a final text from Austin's prison email system. "I understand now. What we did. What I lost. Not just you, but myself. I'm sorry." I didn't respond. Some bridges stay burned. Instead, I headed to the innovation lab, where dozens of employees were already gathering, laptops open, ideas flowing. Their energy felt like the startup incubator where this all began, but purer, untainted by greed or pride. "Ready to hear some pitches?" Sarah asked, practically bouncing with excitement. "Actually," I smiled, "I have an idea of my own." I outlined my vision for a nonprofit teaching tech skills to domestic violence survivors. The room grew quiet, then erupted in offers to help, to teach, to build. This, I realized, was true power. Not destroying others, but lifting them up. Not hoarding success, but sharing it. Isabella found me later on my office balcony. "So," she said, "was it worth it? All of it?" I thought about Austin's text, Rachel's photo, Larry's apology, about my grandmother's warnings and wisdom, about the company we were building from the ashes of what the Blakes destroyed. "You know what?" I said, watching the sun set over my city. "It wasn't about worth. It was about choice. They chose greed. I'm choosing something else." Below us, Employees streamed out of the building, laughing, planning, creating. My phone stayed silent. No more ghosts from the past demanding attention. Sometimes the best revenge isn't serving a cold dish. Sometimes it's cooking up something entirely new, something that feeds not just your hunger for justice, but everyone's hunger for possibility. And that tastes better than revenge ever could.